Okay, hi there. In this video, we're going to take a look at a macro question, examine or assess some of the barriers to economic development facing lower and middle income countries. And in particular, we're going to take a look at how to build an analysis paragraph followed by an evaluation paragraph. So example paragraphs. Now keep in mind, of course, that there's no way you can write a perfect answer in a timed essay in the exam. You're under pressure. The key is to have a structure, a tactic which works for you. Here's the question. Examine the barriers that hold back the level of development. We're going to take a look at two examples of KAA points and two examples of evaluation points that go with the KAA point that you've made. Here's our first paragraph. The first barrier facing developing countries is primary product dependency. State your point clearly at the start, then explain it. This is when the economy is dominated by primary sectors, typically. For example, the extraction of natural resources, copper, extracted by businesses in the DRC. These are typically industries where there isn't much opportunity for value added in processing and manufacturing what you've grown or extracted. And technological advancement increasingly means that these industries are becoming more capital intensive. The use of large scale drilling equipment and tractors and what have you. Therefore reducing the need for a large local workforce and limiting the need for investment in human capital. So workers in these extractive industries often earn very low wages, which then limits progress in reducing extreme poverty. This is a nice paragraph. It brings in some concepts: primary product dependency, value added, capital intensity, human capital, extreme poverty, and it clearly links back to an aspect of development. Always then leave a couple of lines in your answer. Make your KAA point and your eval point quite separate. It helps the examiner mark the answer to a good level. Start with a however point here. The extent to which primary product dependency is harmful to development, linking back to the question, depends on the quality of government and state capacity. For example, some states, some governments can use the windfall revenues, the profits from their primary products to help diversify the economy. They might invest in a sovereign wealth fund. Good example there is Norway. They might build a stabilization fund. Good example set up by Ghana, so they can stabilize the economy during the bad times. Diversification also means that the workforce can work in industries with greater value added. Instead of just growing the coffee, extracting the copper or the oil, start to process and brand some products based around it. That will result in higher wages and per capita incomes and consumption, which promotes development. Okay, you can't write perfect paragraphs, but both of these paragraphs do the job. They analyze in the first place, and then they evaluate. And they use good examples, and does the job nicely. Here's a second KA point. Second barrier to development, go back to the question, is capital flight. Oftentimes it's good to start your paragraph with a nice, punchy, succinct, precise sentence, short sentence. Second barrier to development is capital flight. Explain what the term is. This is when there is rapid, often big, exit of financial capital from an economy, perhaps due to a reduction in consumer confidence or investor confidence. The exit of financial capital therefore reduces the supply of loanable funds. You could use a diagram to show that, which then reduces access to credit of firms and governments. So some chains of reasoning there. The resulting increased interest rates reduces borrowing by government and individuals. As a result, capital flight can lead to a fall in investment, causing a contraction in aggregate demand, and thus an increase in demand-efficient unemployment. Another term used there, as GDP growth slows and firms are left with more spare capacity. So capital flight is a barrier because it can cause a credit crunch, reducing the supply of loanable funds, driving up interest rates, and therefore causing a fall overall in demand and investment in developing countries. The analysis, the KA point, is good. You could support with a diagram showing an inward shift of supply for loanable funds. Valuation. Again, oftentimes a really good evaluation phrase to use. The extent to which, in this case, capital flight poses a risk development depends on, in this case, how reliant a country is on inflows of hot money and portfolio investment in equities and bonds. So is a country heavily dependent? Perhaps they are, because they're unable to attract foreign direct investment, which is typically more stable and less susceptible to changes in investor sentiment. So you can make a case for saying that for lower income countries in particular, which are unable to attract long-term stable FDI, capital flight can be a problem. Additionally, developing countries without big foreign exchange reserves, dollars and yen and euros, which is certainly a problem for many of these countries, they will be affected from capital flight because the central bank won't have those foreign exchange reserves to be able to intervene in currency markets to defend the currency from depreciating. So there could be a sharp fall in the currency. You could then develop the point and talk about the impact on inflation. For example, a falling currency increases consumer prices because imports become more expensive. Again, you can't write a perfect answer in an exam. It's not possible. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to build an analysis point, a KAA point, and then we're trying to evaluate the point that we've made to score good marks in exams. Okay, thanks for joining in this video.